All right, everyone. Link in the description, archived, of course. Iran and Israel are still going at it. Iran just launched strikes, earlier today, their time, actually on Tel Aviv and other locations, killing at least 24 people. Israel responding, of course, in kind, hitting more targets. Netanyahu has been chuckling about this basically on TV. The Iranians are pledging total vengeance and we've seen this before. Some people are assuming this is, the eve of destruction, so to speak. And that could happen. It is possible that an escalation could lead to at least a limited atomic conflict within the region. Iran does not have the bomb. And when Israel says, well, they're imminently going to get one, so we must act, well, Netanyahu's been saying that for a long time. In fact, he said the silent part out loud. He said, "Oh, I've been talking about this for 40 years." Again, disclaimer, I'm not Team Israel. I'm not Team Iran. I do not care what they do in that region because it does not affect me. Neither of these countries poses any existential threat to the United States. I realize that the current administration is unabashedly pro-Israel and does not like to criticize them too much. Though I will admit, Donald Trump has done something that, to my knowledge, no other Republican president has done in living memory, which is actually tell Israel to calm down. I would rather you not strike the Iranians. I'm trying to hammer out a peace deal here. Can you calm down a little bit? Maybe pull back some? Yeah, I know Iran is funding Hamas and stuff like that. Okay, this is not going to be helpful if you haul off against them. Israel, meanwhile, for at least 8 months, had been planning these strikes. Operation Rising Lion, of course. Um, I do believe that U.S. intel was probably involved. The plausible deniability is Netanyahu came out and said, and the security service there said, well, we did this all ourselves. That sounds more like an Operation Intimidate Iran more than anything else. Basically, you better pull your punches because we can punch harder. Really, the U.S. has been involved with the conflict in Gaza and the West Bank for some time. It's currently involved in the conflict with Iran as well. I don't know why they use the term conflict instead of simply saying war or skirmishes, because these are still effectively skirmishes. Israel effectively decapitated Iran, and now they're saying they're going to keep going. Iran, meanwhile, says it will keep fighting as well. The hope is that cooler heads prevail and that you don't get the leveling of Israeli cities and the leveling of Tehran and nuclear war or something like that, and that no third parties get directly involved. You know, the problem for Iran really boils down to the fact that Russia currently is a bit distracted. And I have a feeling that part of the strategy, part of the overall grand strategy, really roots from that. Well, we can bomb back the nuclear facilities, and Russia can't do much about it because they're already overtaxed. So Russia either has to effectively divert things from Ukraine, creating an opening for NATO effectively there, potentially, or it has to effectively let the Iranians languish, and they don't have the ability, they don't have the military capability to put up a defense against Israel unless they stage a full-on war. That is, they would get dragged into something that goes beyond firing off some rockets and drones, and apparently at least one hypersonic missile at one point. Um, they would have to divert forces effectively. I suppose they could drag Hezbollah into it. And if Hezbollah begins acting up, Israel then is technically fighting a three-front war, which would not be wise. I think that Trump, meanwhile, as far as U.S. policy goes, should keep us as distant from this as possible. It's okay to, yeah, fund greatest ally and stuff like that. Wonderful. But if we end up in a situation where Israel is fighting Hezbollah to the north, Iran to the north east, and also occupying Palestine, and might get into it with other nations too, where we're not 100% sure. Syria could get involved potentially. The regime there under Assad was not well loved by Israel, but now it's run by Islamists. If it becomes a regional war, the United States might get dragged into the conflict, into the war. And I don't think that that would be particularly positive. I think that U.S. leadership needs to mind our business before it minds the business of other nations. It doesn't matter if Israel is, I believe, seen by U.S. politicians who pretend to be Zionistic, but really it's for mainly economic and military purposes more than anything. I think they see it as a giant landing strip and a base within the region to intervene in other nations more than anything. So you might end up with a situation where Trump begrudgingly gets dragged into a war, despite trying at the moment to do everything that he can to divert away from it by proposing a peace deal. Liberals have not been helpful in this endeavor. I think that they want a war within the region, at least a limited one that we get involved in, so they can say, well, look, Trump started a war, and stuff like that. I have a feeling that there's some propaganda involved. It doesn't take a genius to figure out what's going on here. And Israel knows that it can now act with virtual impunity. Iran struck Israeli targets with waves of drones and a hypersonic missile and things like that. Well, I mean, the problem is that even most left-leaning U.S. politicians, if not the further left, certainly this is going to unite the far left and MAGA populists again, because they're going to be the ones that are against the war, and everyone within the liberal neocon core of the Uniparty, they're all going to be gung-ho for getting involved. Trump will have to figure out how to very carefully balance this politically. Just saying. And meanwhile, people on both sides of the border are dying, Palestinians and Jews and Iranians. They're all dying. Civilians are suffering. It's funny how Israel claimed it didn't strike any civilian targets on the first wave, but then we got footage of civilian targets being deliberately hit. So yeah, very interesting time. That's about all. Peace out.